What's up, bro? I'm about to show you how you can cure your skinny fat syndrome and how I cured it for myself and completely boosted my confidence and changed my life, okay? Because if you have a skinny fat physique right now, which by the way, if you want to know how you have a skinny if you have a skinny fat physique or not, just stand in the mirror right now. Pause this video, go stand in the mirror, lift up your shirt, take your shirt off, take your take your pants off, being shorts, of course. If you have skinny legs and skinny arms, but you look at your stomach and it looks like a fucking cheeseburger, it's got a bit of hangover, there's a muffin top and there's a bit of flab there, or you just don't have visible abs but you're skinny all over, then congratulations, you have skinny fat. And this was the exact position that I was in. I had a skinny neck, skinny arms, skinny legs, skinny wrists, skinny ankles, skinny everything, but my gut, although I could see my fucking rib cage, you would think that there would be some definition there, but no. It was just kind of like chubby and kind of soft. And that is exactly what skinny fat is. But through years and years and years of trying to figure things out and going to the gym and trying to change my life, I figured it out and I'm going to teach you how to do it yourself, okay? And we have to understand that if you're watching this right now and you are skinny fat yourself, you think that the solution is to go to the gym. And that is how you're going to change. And you've seen this as a solution in all other videos, and it is absolutely true. But the problem is, because for me, for example, I went from skinny to aesthetic, just like I am now, but I wanted to do this quick. I had all this built up insecurity. I didn't want to take my shirt off anywhere. I didn't want to do anything. I was completely embarrassed to be seen shirtless or just even in any tight shirts, okay, because I was so skinny but I was so chubby at the same time and weirdly disgusting, worst body type. Skinny fat is the worst body type you can have. I would argue that I'd rather be fat, like a total fat cunt, like have a big gut, big fat chin, everything, than be skinny fat. Because you're in this weird, ugly middle ground that, if you're there, you know yourself. You can only explain it if you're actually in the position, okay? So, guys, like me and like you, we want to go and we want to build muscle and we want to go to the gym to fix skinny fat. But because we have so much insecurity, we're sick of looking like shit. We hate this. We want to go quick and we want to get it fast. And that is where most guys fall into the trap and actually develop their skinny fat physique into more of a skinny fat physique, okay? Because they're not understanding one key thing. The rate at which you build muscle is slower than the rate at which you can gain fat. So you have to picture it, right? You're already in a position where you're skinny fat, okay? So we already have fat in all the wrong places, but muscle not in the places we want, okay? We almost want to reverse the order of where the fat is and where we're skinny so we can actually have a better proportionate physique, better shape, because that's what skinny fat is all about. It's about where the shape of our body looks more like a fucking pear than it does an aesthetic physique, which is a Dorito physique. As a guy, we want to be looking like an upside down triangle. We want to have a small, taut waist with wide masculine shoulders and a strong back, a strong frame, okay? That's what's going to make us look aesthetic and make us look big and like we're actually aesthetic and fit and powerful as men, okay? But when you're skinny fat, you have this upside, you have like a pear build. You look like a fucking pear, so it's like whoop, and it goes out to the side. But then you have these little fucking sticks and a little fucking stick neck attached, okay? So we think that building muscle is the solution, which it absolutely is, because muscle will just make you look better. Muscle, and the reason why building muscle fixes skinny fat and helps it in the first place, is because it changes the proportions of your body. Even if you remain fat, this is the thing. Right now, you're skinny fat, you look like shit. If you even just remain fat in this stomach, but you put on muscle in all other areas, specifically your shoulders and your arms, well, it wouldn't look so bad anymore. And that's what I noticed myself, okay? If you put the mass on these areas, it kind of evens out the weight and it makes it look more proportionate, okay? However, when we're in the gym and we're trying to do these things, guys like me are going to think, fuck, all right, we need a bulk. Let's go. Let's get in the gym. Let's fucking eat heaps. Eat big to get big. But we're already fat. So what happens is we underestimate how slow it's going to be for us to build new muscle tissue. And we eat so many calories. We eat in a calorie surplus. We go on what's called a bulk. You probably know. You're probably doing it yourself and you're going to make this mistake for sure, which is why I'm telling you. You go on a bulk and you eat a fuck ton of food. You're eating everything in the kitchen, everything your parents are making you, everything you can find, fast food, takeaway, doesn't matter. You're eating it all. And you notice that your muscles aren't getting that much bigger. They're getting bigger. That's because you're having newbie gains and you've got the first initial gains, because if your body has no muscle to begin with, when you give it stimulus and you start training, it's going to develop muscle quick because you're a newbie, but that slows down. And when it slows down, you still think that you need to be in a big surplus and you need to bulk and you need to keep getting bigger. But all that happens is your gut gets bigger. And because the rate at which your muscle is growing is not as quick as putting fat on, especially if you're in a big surplus, well, you get fat and your gut gets bigger, but your arms and stuff don't necessarily get bigger. Okay? So the first thing you need to understand to fixing skinny fat is understand that muscle will be the key defining factor as to what fixes skinny fat because it changes the proportions. We need to go from looking like a pear to looking like a V, looking like an upside down Dorito, and we get that by building the shoulders, building the arms, and building the upper chest, building mass everywhere pretty much, okay? Because we want to offset the ratio of fat to muscle in our body, because right now if you're skinny fat, you have too much fat. So to build muscle is the solution. So we look like we have less fat and we get a better shape, okay? However, in doing so, we do not want to be going on an excessive bulk, especially dirty bulking. Because what I did is I was eating all the food in fucking inside, okay? KFC, McDonald's, everything. I didn't care. As long as it had calories, bro, and that scale was going up, I was chilling. But I really wasn't because I got fucking fat and ugly and still stayed skinny fat. The reason is, when you're eating a lot of these processed dirty foods to try and bulk up, their fat content is typically what makes it such easy foods to bulk with, okay? Because if you eat ice cream, for example, there is so much fat in ice cream because it's made with full cream milk and eggs and all these fatty products, okay? Same with McDonald's. They're cooking it in fatty oils and they're using fatty ingredients and the fattiest cuts of meat, and everything is about fat. That's why these foods are so calorically dense. That's why you can eat a cheeseburger and it's like 600 calories. But if you eat like chicken breast, it's like 150 and it's impossible to get down. The way they make it so easy to eat and so calorically dense is through the high fat content. But if we already have fat on our body and we are in a calorie surplus, meaning we have more calories in than what our body actually needs, and there's only a certain limit as to how much muscle we can make, well, what's going to happen to the rest of those calories that we are intaking? They don't just disappear. They get added as what? Extra energy to our body, extra fat. And the brutal thing is, if you're doing what I did, which was the solution to eat more food easier, which was to increase my fat consumption because they're the most high calorically dense macros. Protein has 4 calories per gram. Carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram. But fat has 9 calories per gram. So obviously you're going to think, yeah, eat more fat, up the fat intake so I can get more calories in quicker and gain weight faster. But we're literally eating straight fat. So then if you have to think, like you have to just not be retarded for a second. If you're eating straight fat and you're already fat and your body doesn't need any more food because you're already in a calorie surplus, meaning you're consuming more energy than what it needs, and we're eating straight fat, well, that fucking fat, the macros, the food, it's converting straight into body fat. It's not converting into muscle because we've already exceeded. Do you understand what I'm saying? We've already exceeded the amount of muscle that we can build. You don't actually need that big of a calorie surplus to build muscle. Maybe 200. 200 a day is pushing it because we can only build a tiny amount of muscle. But all that extra energy, if you're in 1,000 calorie surplus, then that's just stored as fat. And because it's actually the macronutrient of fat, there's less conversion required. Then it just goes straight to body fat. But if you eat carbs, for example, if you eat more carbs than what you need or more above your calorie surplus or calorie maintenance, the carbs have to be processed in the body. They go through glycogen processing, they go through your blood, everything like this. And you lose some, energy by doing that. Same with protein. But fat is literally fat. Fat will go to body fat if you're in a crazy surplus. And that's the mistake that I made. That's the mistake so many guys make. And that brings me to the other point, which so many guys completely ignore. And it's what honestly fixed my skinny fat. Firstly, it was understanding that I didn't have to be in such a big calorie surplus and I wanted to build muscle. The type of physique I wanted to build was one that has a V taper, which means I'm focusing on obviously building muscle throughout my whole body because we need to improve the ratio. But the ratio that makes it look the best and minimizes the skinny fat appearance and makes your body and your flabby stomach look less and look smaller is if we're built like that. shoulders, big round delts, a thick wide back, and big arms, because it's that upper body dominance that will take away from the size illusion of your stomach, okay? So we know that. We know that we don't want to be in a surplus too much, and we need to build muscle, okay? And if you want the way to build muscle and you want the way to actually build this physique exactly, I do have a community which you can check out below. But the next point is, okay, boosting your testosterone, optimizing our hormones, optimizing your hormones. I look back at some of my photos, and it was when I started doing this and when I actually matured and actually focused on becoming more of a man and masculinizing myself. That is when I lowered the brutality of this skinny fat look, and I honestly completely eviscerated it. Okay, now I don't have that skinny fat look at all, because number one, I built a good amount of muscle. I built a base now, so the fact is I don't look skinny fat, because even if I have a bit more fat, it doesn't look bad at all because my muscle outweighs it. Okay, you can even agree with this yourself. Think about it, right? If you see a guy down the street who's kind of fat, right? He's kind of got a big gut, but if he had big arms and big shoulders, it wouldn't look so bad. It would look in proportion, okay? Whereas if this guy had a big gut, but he had skinny twig arms, it would look shit, okay? So we do that. We build muscle, but we also have to boost our testosterone. That's what I did. I started to boost my hormones, and you've probably never heard of this. Most guys are just telling you to fix skinny fat, you do ab workouts and build some muscle. We also need to boost our testosterone. Why? Because testosterone, the life force of man, will determine how masculine we are. And one of the key traits of being masculine, and one of the things that is indicative of having good, healthy testosterone levels in young men, is where our fat is deposited. Because higher testosterone guys tend to have less fat deposited in the ugly, skinny fat making areas. So they'll have less fat in the breast area. They won't have man titties, firstly. They'll have less fat in the stomach. They won't have that muffin top. They won't have that little like fluffy, grabbable area on the side of your stomach. Guys with high testosterone don't have this, because it's estrogen, the opposite, the female sex hormone. High levels of estrogen actually make it more likely that you will store fat in these bad areas that make you unattractive and unaesthetic, okay? Higher testosterone is the solution to making sure that the fat you gain does not go to your stomach and to all these other areas. Now, most of you guys, and me included, we have low testosterone, and that's half the issue. The first issue is we don't have enough muscle. We look scrawny and we look skinny. The second part of the issue is we have low testosterone. So when we have low testosterone and our hormones are all fucked up, because firstly, we're skinny, which means we've been malnourished for most of our life. We've not eaten the correct foods. You probably grew up, skinny and not eating the right stuff, eating fast food, skipping out in your micronutrient intake, not eating enough protein, all these things that are going to not only stunt our growth and make our brain fucked up and stupid, which is a whole nother point, but make our testosterone low, which means we don't grow and masculinize properly, we don't develop properly, and we store fat in these ugly areas, okay? You're skinny, you're malnourished. So we don't have the optimal building blocks for a good, healthy, genetic base. So that's why we get that skinny look, and that's why we have that flabby look, because our estrogen is high, because our testosterone is low. So we need to boost our testosterone, okay? If we're skinny, we've been in a calorie deficit. So we know that we have to be in a calorie surplus, and being in a calorie deficit for too long when we're growing in these fundamental years of puberty and growth, if we're in a calorie deficit and we're malnourished, well, we're going to have these low testosterone symptoms, and we're not going to develop into men. That's why you see so many guys, they're just living, it's literally studied. Most guys are living up to, not even 20% of the potential. They're meant to be way taller, way stronger, way wider, way more masculine, okay? And it's when I boosted my testosterone, I looked and compared the pictures, that is what changed. That's when I fixed skinny fat, because my body fat distribution started to change, and I started to store less fat around my face and around my stomach chubby love handle area, and I just got more aesthetic. The way I was able to boost my testosterone, well, firstly, it was by building muscle. Okay, it was by becoming more masculine and using high energy outputs and actually doing sports and actually doing stuff that was challenging, and forced my body to lean towards more of a masculine life path, okay? Because men are meant to have muscle, okay? That's why it's easier for men to build muscle than it is for women. We're meant to have high testosterone levels, right? So I built muscle and I got in the gym. And when you strain and when you have this ancestral like grunt to fucking conquer and get stronger and get better, your testosterone will go up. But I also changed the way I was eating. I also changed my diet. I started obviously focusing on more whole foods, and I ditched a lot of the junk that I was eating to bulk up with. But more so, the way I was able to boost my testosterone was by eating high fat animal products. Now, remember that I said that fat will go straight to fat, right? Well, that is true. However, there's different types of fat that you can eat, and it will change the way your body uses it, and it will change the way you feel and change the way you look, okay? So the reason animal fats are very, very good is because they are saturated and they are natural and they are not highly processed, highly refined. Like when I was bulking up when I first started, I was trying to rush everything. What I did was I was eating like oils and like vegetable oils, and I was eating processed pasta dishes and stuff. And that was just creating an incredible amount of inflammation in my body because of the processed nature and how shit it was for me, and it was made in a lab, most of it. So when you get inflammation, when your body is like, holy fuck, what is this random fucking slop it's putting inside, like this guy's putting inside the body, your body gets inflamed, your cortisol increases, which is your body's stress hormone, and cortisol is a direct enemy and antagonist of testosterone. So if you're eating all this bullshit, that's what happened to me. If you're eating all this bullshit, trying to rush the bulk, trying to get bigger quick, but not realizing that muscle takes way longer than you think to build, you're just putting on excess fat, and the fat that you're consuming, which is contributing to this excess body fat, is through shit food, processed, hyperpalatable foods, which causes your body inflammation, therefore lowers your testosterone and feeds into the root issue in the first place, which was your poor metabolic function and your body's inability to manage fat properly and distribute it properly. And then you just have high estrogen, low testosterone, you store fat like a girl, you have man tits, you probably get gyno like some of the guys I know, and you have a flabby stomach, but you're not building muscle quick. Okay, the solution is to boost your fucking testosterone. Higher animal fat content. I like to eat eggs. A tip I would give you, specific autistic level tip, that if you want to start boosting your testosterone now and change the way your body is going to use its hormones and actually optimize and start building muscle quicker, because it is literally the life force of men, you need higher testosterone. Start eating eggs before bed, 4 to 6 eggs. I sometimes have like 10 to 15 eggs per day. They are high in cholesterol, which is the building block, the fundamental thing that you need to actually synthesize testosterone and to make testosterone in your balls, okay, right? We need to increase our egg intake, have eggs before bed, start eating more meat, also start training harder in the gym as well. And you will notice that when you do this, when you boost your testosterone, you will start to get more masculine features, your face will sharpen out, but you will also reduce the amount of skinny fat you have, and you will naturally gravitate to a higher bone mass body, and chances are your frame might grow, you might get taller as well. All these positive things that make you more masculine will actually take away from the skinny fat appearance, okay? That is what I did. I built muscle, okay? But when I was building muscle, I didn't make the mistake, or I stopped making the mistake of eating in crazy surpluses where I was eating shit food that was inflaming my body, resulting in less muscle built, poor metabolic function, low testosterone, and therefore more fat accumulation in bad areas, okay? Now, the final thing that I would say is to just get leaner as well, okay? When we're fat, when we have excess fat as well, you're just going to be more inflamed. You're just going to have a worst case, scenario. You're just going to have a worse time with the gym, with everything, okay? You need to get lean as well. Getting lean involves doing more steps, like going outside and actually walking around, playing some sports, doing exercise throughout the day, and simply eating less. And it's when you actually realize, like I said, it's all a system. When you realize that if you boost your testosterone, you build muscle, and when you're doing this properly, you realize that you don't need a crazy surplus to actually build muscle, because it's way slower and way less than you think. You won't accumulate excess fat, and if you're walking throughout the day, if you're playing some sports, and if you're working out hard, your body will naturally recompose itself, and it will naturally reorganize its hormones to be more effective and efficient, and you'll build muscle and you'll lose fat at the same time. That's how we get truly aesthetic. So combining those things, this is how you actually fix skinny fat. You boost your testosterone and optimize your hormones, because you're probably malnourished right now. You do this by eating whole foods, by more animal-based products, realizing that you need to build muscle, but not in a crazy calorie surplus, and you get lean. It's not that rocket science, okay? And the brutal reality of it is, a lot of this stuff, for most guys, it's just going to take time. That's the biggest mistake that you'll make. You have such a built up, pent up insecurity right now, just like I did, that you think you need it now. You want to fix this skinny fat now. Do the ab workouts, do all this shit. It doesn't work. The brutal truth is, to build muscle, you're going to need time, okay? It's going to be a long process, but you can speed it up if you boost your testosterone and if you don't eat in a crazy surplus and blow it out of the water trying to fix the issue and making it worse at the first place, okay? So I hope this helped. This is how I was able to fix skinny fat and transform my physique. If you're interested in transforming it yourself and you want deeper guidance and you want the full system, the full protocol on how to improve your life as well as a young man, fix this skinny fat, fix this insecurity, get aesthetic, finally get girls, finally be social, check the link in the description. But with that being said, I really hope this helped. Remember that progress is purpose, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.